Well, hello everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Skol Purple podcast. And really excited to be joined by Chris Dupick, who was with me yesterday. You can find him on Twitter at DupeDude, at dude, at dad, at dad dude Dupe. Is that I maybe messed that up, Chris? Uh, anyways, and then we're also joined for the first time, making his Skol Purple podcast debut, Chandler Holland, ready for the Skol chant. Maybe the Mike Zimmer get out of town chant after not getting Justin Jefferson his record today. But, that's classic Zimmer for you. And so, gentlemen, how are you doing today? Got the victory today. It was not looking good in that first half, but the Vikings pulled it out. Before we actually get into the breakdown of the game, I'm going to let Chandler go ahead and introduce himself briefly and also give us his how he became a Vikings fan. So, Chandler, welcome in, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Carson. That's a loaded question, though, with how I became a Viking fan. I was brainwashed as a child at a very young age. That's all my father watched growing up being a all Minnesota sports fan. So I call it Loserville. I cheer for nothing but losers, it feels like. Yeah, my dad pretty much just had the game on, every Sunday, and I just fell into it. I say I never had a real choice to pick my own team. If I could go back, who knows? Maybe I would have changed, but I love being a Vikings fan. It brings me great joy, mostly. Unlike even when I want them to lose, they will find a way to win, type situation. A situation like today, I would be straight honest. I wanted them to lose because I want the better draft pick. I think we're all in the same boat there. But now, just as a young age, being from South Dakota, close to Minnesota, we'd go drive 4 hours to Minneapolis, go to plenty of games as a younger kid. Just kind of fell into it. Now it's deep burning passion for me. I love this team. I hate this team. And they always make it interesting. And that's what I appreciate. It's never a dull, boring year, it seems. It's always something happens. Whether that's good or bad, something's always happening. So that's kind of, I just, growing up, dad, that's the main reason why I'm a Vikings fan today. And I will make sure my future kids will be brainwashed as well and will have to endure the same amount of pain as me.
Well, that is exactly how all of us got here. We have all been brainwashed, so that's pretty much, I think, the truth for everybody, really. But
yeah, no, I was about to say, like, same thing happened with me. That's like that one person that got me into the Vikings. So it's like I'm going to be that person for someone else. Just keep growing the fan base.
Yeah, well, it just always sucked because my best friend, childhood best friend, is a huge Patriots fan. Their family's all Patriots fans. So Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl, I'll never forgive myself for in 2009 calling him and saying, "Oh my God, dude, I think we're finally gonna go. We're finally gonna go to the Super Bowl. It's our time finally." And we all know how that season ended. So having to deal with a best friend that's a Patriots fan is never fun as well. And, being from South Dakota, there's always plenty of Packer fans around as well to share the joy of their cheesiness.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
yeah. Well said. Well said. That is for sure. So, well, gentlemen, appreciate that, Chandler, telling us a little bit about your childhood of being brainwashed, and we feel your pain, man. We feel your pain. It's been a long, I'm 25 years old and I feel like I'm 55 by watching this team. It's the way it is.
And going into this offseason, we could age another 20 years. Depending on what happens here. I know we'll dive into that later, but
Yep.
I'm very excited to talk about the possibilities and get your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be with both of you again. Well, first time with all three of us, so but it's good to talk Vikings. You know, I've been thinking about starting something like this for a while, and now that we're finally here and finally doing it, it's awesome. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and bring in the topic that we all want to talk about, the game. No, we don't really want to talk about it, but it was a good game in the end, I guess, in terms of getting a win, which, by the way, Mike Zimmer said, I knew about the record. I just didn't care about it. I cared about wins. That's what Mike Zimmer said after the game, which typical.
Never change, Mike. Never change.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So let's go ahead and start with that first half. What was going on? Like, it just seemed like, Chris, you and I talked about this yesterday. Like, I felt like either the Vikings were going to come out and roll or they were going to come out and be lethargic. And it was kind of both. Like, they came out and were lethargic in the first half, and then the second half things changed. But
Yeah.
Chris, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts were on on that first half.
No, it's funny. We got a little bit of both, like we were talking about yesterday. And when the Vikings came out there, we're fired up to see Kirk again, see what he can do in his game back. And it just seemed like he could not get the ball out, And of course, our offensive line had nothing but was no help in that matter, anyways. So then there was that just quarterback just couldn't get the ball. It was kind of like we were watching the Packers game when we were watching Sean Mannion again. And I think I texted both of you and I was like, I think Kellen Mond would be better at this point, But what does Kirk do? He comes out and I think he throws like 3-4 touchdown passes, one to each of his receivers, and wins the game for us. Except I think Jefferson got one.
Did he have one? He might have had one.
He got one where he just stood in the end zone and just posted up a cornerback. It was great.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
should have had two.
Kirk let us down the first half, but I'll give him props. He came back in the second half, and I think our defense was decent in the first half too. We weren't too bad, but when you can't get an offense going right away, it's hard to keep going throughout the rest of the game. So glad we finally got on track. I mean, I would have also liked to lose the game too to get the better draft pick, like Chandler was saying before. So.
All right,
yeah,
Chandler.
I'm probably a terrible fan. I wanted them to lose, and I wanted them to lose probably embarrassing too. Like the last straw was last weekend, that Sunday night game. It drove me absolutely nuts. I don't know if Kellen Mond's going to be any good. I don't know what's going to happen with him and here going forward in the future. Is he going to be a complete bust? I mean, you pretty much spent a second round pick on him. He was the second pick in the third round. I mean, either like you got to see what he's got at some point. The whole comments of I see him every day. All right. So that obviously means that Kellen Mond just isn't good, or I mean, you got to throw him out there and see what happens. I really wanted to see him play today. Nothing against Kirk, but it's just, I wanted them to lose. I was so ready for them to lose. They came out and played their asses off in the second half, which is always encouraging to see, no quitting the team, but I'm ready for the rebuild, blow it up. Let's start this baby fresh all over again. That's just where I'm at.
Yeah, I tell you what, nothing may have been more frustrating for a Bears fan in this game than watching Matt Nagy continually go for it on 4th and short and throw the ball every time after they were literally gashing the Vikings run defense the entire game. Oh, let's throw the ball. Didn't do it once. Didn't do it twice. 3 times. What are you doing, Matt Nagy?
That's the same thing in that Monday Night Football game earlier in the year. Montgomery just was destroying us. We had no run defense like we haven't in the last 2 years. And like, what that guy, I don't know what he's thinking. I mean, they're going to throw a parade in Chicago after this season, getting rid of him. But
Yeah.
and then I don't know, Gus Johnson continues to just talk about how much promise they have in Chicago, and I'm just like, where is this promise? Like, I don't know. Like, they have some nice pieces, but it's not like they're up and like they're gonna take the next step with a different coach next year. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of funny.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was definitely funny. I like Gus Johnson, but I do think both him and Aqib Talib were just going on and on about how good these teams were throughout the game. It's like these teams are below 500. They are not good teams. The Vikings, been in a lot of close games. They've got a lot of talent, but they never can, we know the story. They can't ever win in big spots. It's become a tradition, unlike any other. Oh wait, that's the Masters, but
Well, I mean, I like Gus Johnson too. Talib, he's character, but let's just all hope that his kid got that football for his birthday. If I had to hear that one more time, God forbid.
They finally brought the whole family in there at the end too.
Some producer was like, "Oh, these people probably have no idea what's going on. We better bring someone in to figure out what's going on here, so people watching at home are not so confused."
I did like some of Aqib's points throughout the game, though. Like, he was saying how the Vikings should be pressing more on some of these receivers because they play off so much. Like, that's why you get Darnell Mooney with so many open targets, because they just lay off. They just want to go up and make the tackle, which really has honestly been a staple of Mike Zimmer's defenses throughout the years. And I just would rather not have a completion, like, we're just going to, let them drive down the field and then force them to kick a field goal, or, maybe come up with a 4th down stop if they don't kick the field goal, which, that happened again because Matt Nagy. But, and I'm not saying they should have gone and kicked the field goal all of those times, because I think they went for it in the right situations mostly. But run the ball. They were getting so much push on that offensive line. And then, the Vikings offense just looked atrocious. Kirk didn't have a ton of time. And when he did have some time before the offensive line was literally pushed back into him, then you couldn't even get him to move. Like, he wouldn't move. And then in the second half, all of a sudden we see Kirk Cousins move. He runs up and he just launches one down the field. It's like, where was this Kirk in the first half? And that's been the case with Kirk Cousins, I feel like, his entire Minnesota Vikings career. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It really is. That's just where I feel. That's just how I feel, I guess. But
what I think Kirk Cousins thrives on is just like the ability to play when there's people doubting him. Like, he goes into the locker room at halftime with like a 0 on the board. And, I'm sure he goes in his head and he's like, I've got to come out and like throw some touchdowns. But he just needs that like extra motivation to get that fire under him. He needs some doubters, I think.
He's a mystery to me. Kirk Cousins will forever be a mystery. Guy, we all know his stats. We all know his story. I've just never seen a guy that can't operate like in a messy pocket, like as bad as him. He has like arthritis or something. He has to, like, he cannot, and he's not an unathletic guy. Like, he's athletic enough to be mobile. I mean, I'm not saying he's, the White Vic or anything, but I mean, he's got some ability to move around when he wants. And this would be the last offensive line that I trust to keep me back there for 5-6 seconds, like he thinks he has, but I don't know.
And he never runs out of the pocket. He just stands in there and expects there to be 10 seconds to throw the ball. It's not like he's got Aaron Rodgers' offensive line here. I mean, come on. I mean, when you've got 2 guys starting today who probably won't be starting for you next year, and I'm talking about Ali Udo and Garrett Bradbury, like, you should know that there's going to be issues. And that's honestly where the Bears really thrived in that first half, I think, is especially Ali Udo. Just
You know, Ali
ate
Udo
his
has
lunch.
just been an absolute mystery to me. Like, guy trots out there. I mean, today, that egregious holding penalty against when he just got burnt and then he ended up having to just hold on to him. And when we were in the red zone, it's like, I don't know, man. They keep trotting him out there. He hasn't done great all season. And it's just one of those things where Zimmer seems to want to play veterans over guys like Wyatt Davis. And I mean, anyone but Ali Udo at this point. You know what I mean?
It's like the whole TJ Clemmings thing again. Like literally, it's a repeat. You know, when TJ Clemmings was out there right tackle so many weeks and one whole season. I mean, I think Teddy have him for the right tackle for a whole season, and somehow we made the playoffs that year. And we won't talk about
That's
the
a
ending,
name.
but
That's a name I never want to hear again. So that you just unlocked a memory for me
Oh,
of
Teddy?
watching.
not a good one.
I mean, I like Teddy, but TJ Clemmings. I mean that guy was trotting him out every Sunday was quite the sight to see. I think
Yes.
I might have had a chance to beat around them and get after the quarterback, but that just unlocked a memory for me. TJ Clemmings, God bless his soul.
Yeah, that's how we're gonna leave that situation. Any other thoughts? Let's go positives and negatives from the game before we move on to Zimmer likely being fired. I haven't looked at my phone to see if there's any official word, but my thought we'll save that. So positives.
I like to
I'll
think
go.
they just let him go, like, as he's walking out of the stadium, you know? Just let him know as he's walking to his car.
Do the old Mike Tice Ole. Let him know why he's walking out the stadium. I don't know.
Yeah. I think after a win, you probably wait till tomorrow. If they would have lost today, I would have fired him right away. You know.
How much red wine
Yeah.
is Mike Zimmer going to have celebrating
I don't know.
the win tonight?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Does he just get out of Dodge, you think? Did he just go back to the ranch in Kentucky, or is he going to sit around and hang out and take it all in?
I don't know.
He's got
I
a
think he's
girlfriend to
emotional.
think about.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
I can't.
Wherever the woman wants to be. You know that, Chandler, right?
Yeah, that's right. You know what, Carson, I'll give you one positive I had from this game. Your boy from Iowa. What in the world should he been playing all year, you think?
Yeah, but Zimmer and his hatred of rookies.
Yeah, well, Amir, what I can't even
Amir Smith
Marset. I always just want to call him Amir Smith, but
Yep.
wow, I mean, just breaking guys' ankles. Granted, we're gonna say he broke that guy's ankles, even though I think he just blatantly fell over. But wow, well done for the Iowa kid. Good job. I mean, good job for the Iowa kid.
Yeah, I tell you, that's a positive, seeing him play well for me, but then also just the idea of him being the fourth wide receiver on this team, behind Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, if he's back next year, who knows, depending on GM and coach and all that situation. And then you put in KJ Osborne, who's emerged as the wide receiver 3, and now Amir Smith Marset, number 4. That's a good 1 through 4 right there. If Kirk Cousins or whoever the quarterback is has the time to throw the football.
I agree.
That's pretty positive.
Yeah. There could be plenty of. I'll give you one negative. There could be plenty of them, but it's always kind of hard to pick a negative when you like win a game, especially when your team's not playing for anything. I mean, you could pick out many negatives, but for me, it's just kind of hard because I just didn't even care what happened this game. I really wanted to see the younger guys play, and we didn't get to see that. So I guess I'll go with that with a negative, not seeing a Wyatt Davis. He must be terrible too, for all I know. It's just the grudge, like you said, Zimmer has. I don't know, over playing rookies, except if your name's the back of your jersey says Bridgewater. I think that's about it.
Well, and even I mean, Justin Jefferson, I think somebody must have said something to Zimmer when Jefferson was doing so well. They're like, he didn't get hardly any touches in the first 2 weeks, and then Zimmer's like, all right, I guess. Finally, they're like, yeah, I guess this rookie's good enough to play.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
One thing too is like thinking about KJ Osborne and the season like he's having this year compared to his one last year when he was a rookie. We see that again. It's like here's this guy that we could get the ball more last year, but we went to guys like Chad Beebe. Who else? Just other wide receivers. Old BC Johnson. Maybe he was around, but
yeah,
we have this guy KJ Osborne, so much talent that is shining through finally, but. It's like Zimmer, if you want to go on next year or like coach, just think about playing the rookies. They've got some skill and they don't need experience. They got plenty of experience in college. You know what I mean?
Or even just throwing them out there just to see what they have. I mean, like you said, the idea that Zimmer just really doesn't and I kind of said this too, just the idea that he doesn't, for whatever reason, like playing rookies. We saw it with Cam Dantzler a little bit, but it's been more Dantzler because Bashad Breeland has been out, and also Cam Dantzler is like one of the few corners that the Vikings have that is actually somewhat relevant or somewhat decent. So that's another. I mean, obviously Patrick Peterson was number one all year when he was healthy, but yeah, that was a rough secondary to watch all season, and then the run defense just continually did not play well all year. So, any last thoughts before we move on to the Zimmer likely fired situation?
You mentioned earlier about the Vikings just don't ever seem to press coverage at the line. We sort of hang back. And there was one play when we needed to get the ball back on offense. We needed Jefferson to get some more yards, and we waited till they got like to the first down marker until we actually made contact with the receiver, and they got a first down and eventually. So it was like finally our sort of way of hanging back worked out for us, where we got some tip balls at the line of scrimmage and some like floating duck ball interceptions for us. But moving forward, it'd be nice to see like some more press coverage. But definitely a positive today, seeing some interceptions, especially from Patrick Peterson, getting that interception so he can keep up his streak of one interception per year. So
there you go. Chandler, any last things about this game?
I really don't have a whole lot of thoughts on this game. I'm just happy the season. I'm not happy the season's over, but I'm ready for a new era. I'm very excited for that. I'm ready for probably the most important offseason this franchise has had possibly ever. So bring it on. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for the offseason.
What a transition. Let's go ahead and talk about the offseason. And Mike Zimmer is likely fired by the end of today, or at least by the end of tomorrow, I would think. And so I think we all are in agreement. He needs to be gone. Chandler, let's start with you, since you didn't really get a chance to yesterday. What do you think Zimmer, first of all, will coach somewhere next year, or do you think he takes a year off? Do you think he ends up as a defensive coordinator, or what do you think his position will be wherever he lands next year?
Oh, how old is Zim? Is he
65?
65. Pete Carroll's what, 70?
Yeah, it's like
70 something. I don't know. I think I could see him taking a year off. I could also just see him being done. I don't know. Maybe the game has just passed him by so much that no one's going to really want him as a head coach anymore. Possibly a defensive coordinator. Maybe. I could see him just going down to the ranch, taking a year off and taking time to be with family and hanging out, doing Zim things on the ranch, getting that red man. I mean, I don't know. I don't see him with another organization. That just would be weird to me. If Dan Quinn leaves the Cowboys, would he go back to the Cowboys, be a defensive coordinator there? I mean,
100%, 100%.
I I have a hard. I think his ego would take over and not want to be a defensive coordinator again. I could see him taking a
Could be a
year off and then
possibility.
seeing. But I'm going to say he takes the year off and see where things end up after next year.
I could also maybe see him saying, you know what? I did not like having to deal with a quarterback. I didn't like having to deal with all this offensive stuff. I'm content with going back to the defensive side where I know I thrive.
But does he though?
Except for the last 2 years.
I was going to say the last 2 years, he's what? I mean, but then I think he puts a lot of blame on Spielman for that and all the draft picks, the Kirk situation, not having the cap space to get more guys in, get better depth. But that's your job though, as the coach, and coach these players up and develop, which we haven't seen in the last few years.
Nope. Even guys like Cam Dantzler, like he is athletic. He's got the frame of a guy that could be a really good corner, and Zimmer really hasn't done anything to help bring him along this year. I don't think, anyway.
So my question is, what are you guys' thoughts what if he doesn't get fired? What if he is back another year?
Oh boy. I don't think you can bring both of them back. So I think either the Wilfs are going to side with Zimmer. Like I was saying yesterday to Chris, I was like, either they're going to side with Zimmer and be like, okay, we want Zimmer back, Spielman gone. But I would be thinking 8-8 again next season if they're all back. Honestly, that's what my expectation would be. So.
Yeah, no, I would be absolutely befuddled. But you know what? I think the first thing he would do, he gets that contract extension. He calls up Sean Mannion. He says, "You're going to be my starting quarterback. You're going to be my guy."
He's got a big arm, and he's the smartest guy in the quarterback
He's tall.
room.
He's got a good frame. Let me tell you.
No, but in all seriousness, yeah, go ahead.
No, you finish. You finish, absolutely.
In all seriousness though, with Zim, like if he's back, I mean the commentators today were saying, you know, the Vikings have fought for him all year, and that relationship has been so strong, you know, and I haven't seen it. So if he's back, given the comments he made about Kellen Mond, you know, given everything that's happened, where not playing rookies, you know, terrible clock management, like I see another season just like we had, you know, and that's not what I want to see. So let's hope he's gone. But
one thing I do want to say about Zimmer is I am thankful for him coming in when he did, 2014. I think he was the coach that we needed at the time, but he has overstayed his welcome. He's done. It's time to move on, and I do appreciate it. And I do think, you know, we could give him a little clap. You know, we appreciate your service there, Zim, but and we do wish you the best in the future. But it's time. It's beyond time to move on and welcome in a new regime. So what's the next step? What do you guys think? Do you think Rick Spielman is back as the GM? Does he just stay at the organization in a quote unquote higher role? Or does the Wolves decide to move on completely from Rick Spielman? I think he's back in some capacity next year. What say you? We'll start with you, Chris.
You know what? It would not surprise me if they just ran it back with Rick Spielman in the GM role again. Given all of the trading he's done, and you know, he's got us to this point, you know, and it's like, let's just maybe the Wolves are thinking, let's just see this Rick guy through. He's brought in some draft picks that, could be good for us next year. So I think it's really a 50-50 chance that he either stays on as a GM or he moves on to a different role within the organization still. I'm with you in that I do not think he sort of just vacates this organization as a whole. But we have seen him struggle as a GM too, so he hasn't been the best. But in my personal opinion, I'd love to bring in someone new and, give him a say. Give Rick a say. He probably knew who could be a good GM for us. And he could advise him in that transition and stuff. So I think it's not a good idea to just cut Rick out cold turkey without, having him in the building to sort of develop guys still and advise the new GM that we bring on.
Chandler?
I also want to just say, Carson, I agree with you on the Mike Zimmer situation. That just overstayed. It's like that ex-girlfriend you just kind of keep around, or your current girlfriend is just never going to get better. It's just it's toxic, and but it sucks so much to move on, but it's the right thing. It's just, it's definitely time. It's time for a change. I think he needs a change too himself personally. Just the organization itself. Yes, I totally agree where you're at on Zimmer. Spielman, I definitely think he will stay in the organization. I think he'll find it like a John Elway type role. I keep seeing that, floating around. I think that's ultimately he's tied in with the Wilfs. He's good for the organization. I think it's a change of pace, or he needs a different job within the organization. Who they pick to replace him, that's about as good of a question as there is, because I have no idea. Do you go outside the organization? Do you hire within? Do you take a Rob Brzezinski, move him into a GM role? Do you have that Jamal, I'm going to say, is it Stevenson? He's like the director of player personnel or something.
Could be.
I've seen his name pop around. You put him in the GM, or again, do you just go outside the organization and just completely blow this up and get a fresh new eyes on this? This is all up to the Wilfs. And from what I've read and can remember, they've never had to make a decision like this before. So again, the state of the Minnesota Vikings is up in the air, and it's going to make for the most interesting, entertaining, and stressful offseason we've ever had to deal with.
Yeah. I think you're
one thing
absolutely
about
right.
the Wolves, I think you're right too. Like, one thing about the Wolves is that I don't think they're ones that love making those big decisions. Considering we sort of have this same system for going on 8 years now. So it's finally come to fruition. We're getting something new, but those owners, man, one thing about them is they just love continuity. That's what we've seen for a while now.
I mean, it's just typical Vikings, never what do we always say? Never bad or not good enough, whatever the term I'm trying to say. We're not bad like the Lions organization. Like, we're never going to be that bad, but we're always good, but not good enough. And somehow we got to find someone to get over that hump. I don't know what everyone's opinion is. I'm all in. If you could, I think I'm a big Eric Bieniemy fan. I like him. I would take him in a heartbeat. I see a lot of Viking fans on Twitter saying they would love Doug Peterson. That terrifies me, to be honest. I'm not a big Doug Peterson fan. I don't know why so many people are fixed on Doug Peterson. I see, but I'm in on Eric Bieniemy. Listening to him on interviews, the way players talk about him, way other coaches talk about him. If you get A+ offseason would be getting Eric Bieniemy, and then if somehow you could get Vic Fangio to come here and be the defensive coordinator, that would be the home run of all off seasons for me. Do I think that's going to happen? No way. I mean, there's no chance that's happening.
I tell you what, I agree. That would be an A++ for me. I mean, I'm not saying that Vic Fangio is the most innovative defensive mind, but he could be good enough as a defensive coordinator. If he's not, involved with any offensive decision making, and Yeah, I think that'd be okay. And yeah, he's in my top 3. He's in my top 3 for sure. I also would put Jim Harbaugh in my top 3. I don't know where you guys stand on Jim Harbaugh, but I put him in my top 3. And then I would also think about Byron Leftwich. You know, he's got a lot of playmakers over there in Tampa Bay, but he's done some good things. And then I I'm not sold on Kellen Moore as a head coach. So I think Kellen Moore could be a good. I think he's been good at play calling at times, but I don't know if he's got that leader head coach type of mentality. If that makes sense. And then Doug Peterson, I think his success was because of Frank Reich. I honestly do believe that. I think Frank Reich was the big reason why Philadelphia was where they were and ended up winning the Super Bowl, but that's just my 2 cents on it, I guess. And I guess we won't know until Doug Peterson gets another job. But Chris, where do you think of the head coaching candidates? Where should the Vikings go?
Yeah, I think like Chandler was saying, the enemy has been so good in Kansas City, and like we bring him in as sort of this head coach that has an offensive mind that he can sort of work with Clint, maybe keep Clint on, and but the enemy would be the one calling the plays, and then I like that idea of bringing in someone like really experienced like Fangio on the defensive side of the ball, and we'd be really strong on that side too, and maybe even just keep Andre Patterson in a role in some sort, but let go of Adam Zimmer too. So ARP NMB is good. Yeah, Byron Leftwich, I think he shows that leadership ability, especially he has lots of experience at quarterback. I think that's always good for a head coach, and he's been really good in Tampa Bay too. So I like those two offensive-minded guys. I agree. Like Kellen Moore, I mean, yeah, it doesn't really show that leadership ability to me. But I guess those are the kind of guys I'm looking at. Yeah, Doug Peterson, like, let's not even go down that road. Like, he's been good in the past, I'm sure. He has that Super Bowl, but he just gives me like Mike Zimmer vibes still. Like, I don't know.
The offensive version of Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, that's a great exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, all we want is just a kick-ass offense, just like we had with Brad Childress, right? That's all we're looking for. Some sort of. I mean, back to
Can
Andre
we duplicate
Patterson,
the 2009 offense?
that was a lot of fun. I wish.
Yeah.
The pieces are in place to have an explosive, good offense.
Oh yeah.
Fill up that offensive line a little bit, get a little bit more creative. But Andre Patterson, that's another guy that I forgot to bring up. I could see him sticking around too, possibly. I think he's one guy that whoever comes in and replaces him, they have to keep him. And could he move into that defensive coordinator role? Sure. But I think he's a very important piece to this team and that defensive line room. I don't know where they're going to go. It's going to be interesting. I'm so excited for something to happen. I keep refreshing Twitter because I'm just like, I want the news now. But I know we're going to have to be patient. We'll be patient and see what happens.
So appreciate it. But yeah, no, I think the big thing for me is Andre Patterson should stay in the organization too. I think that's a good idea. And whether that's a defensive assistant, I would, if he's not the defensive coordinator, I would be okay with him being an assistant to the head coach, or like the assistant head coach if Bieniemy or whoever your next head coach is can't coach a game because of COVID, if that happens again or whatever, and be a special assistant there. But I think if you bring in like Vic Fangio, and if Patterson has some influence there, where Vic Fangio, that's the thing that scares me a little bit with Vic Fangio, is if he's so stuck in his ways like Zimmer, where he won't change anything defensively and he doesn't do anything modern. He just does the same thing over and over again. So I don't know if that's if that would be the case or not, but that does frighten me a little bit with Vic Fangio.
Yeah, I'm not. I just see what he did in Chicago. You know, it always. I like that strong presence in the defensive room. I get your concern there too, but I just feel like the game hasn't passed him by. Like it feels like with Mike Zimmer, just by watching Denver a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying I'm an elite Denver Bronco mind, but I just, it's just one of those big names, you know, like look at the Cowboys with Dan Quinn, you know, what they were able to do, revamp that defense in a year, granted drafting Micah Parsons, who I still can't believe fell that far into the draft, has been able to do with them, you know, turn that around. They need some more depth and pieces on that in the defense, and they're going to lose a lot too. And it'll be interesting to see who they bring back next year on all, because we have how many guys on 1-year contracts. So it's
Quite a few, yeah.
Again, who knows? We just got to get through tonight and tomorrow and see who even is our GM and who's going to be making these calls.
Yeah,
I think most importantly, who's going to be our kicker? You know, we're going to bring back Greg the Leg, or who are we going to put? Who are we going to let decide the outcome of like 5 Vikings games in 1 year? Yeah,
that's a fair point.
You better call up the Raiders and see if old Daniel Carlson wants to try and come back. And like, what the heck was that? What happened with that? I mean, that's unbelievable. The guy just leaves and one game he's
with
out.
3 missed kicks.
I mean, that was a pretty
It was bad.
Awful.
Oh,
it was awful, but
do you think Zimmer had something to do with that? Like, I really wonder how many of these kickers Zimmer has just ruined. Like with, I don't know how many comments he makes. I think he's been staying away from Greg Joseph. I think he's learned his lesson a little bit, but I really wonder how many of these kickers Zimmer's just like, you gotta, you know, just gone up to and just shattered their confidence. I'm curious to know that.
I would assume Greg Joseph is back. I feel like we finally have a punter too that we can rely on. You know, that's one part of the game you never worry about, but then obviously when something messed up happens, it's the big topic of conversation.
I watch every extra point.
Absolutely, absolutely. I never turn the channel, never turn my head because I need to see. But I think Greg Joseph will be back. I would assume so.
Yeah, I don't think he's done enough to say. I mean, that 33-yard missed kick was bad. I mean, I personally wouldn't want him back. I really wish the Vikings would have got Cairo Santos when they had the opportunity to. I think that's when they had Dan Bailey, I believe, when he was released from the Chiefs. But that would have been a good get because I think he could be a kicker in the league for quite a few years yet. But they missed out. And the Vikings also missed out on, they had Daniel Carlson. Oh, never mind. They messed that one up. It's, you know, I really wonder. And now, you know, too, with like the quarterback situation, I think Zimmer, you know, probably messed with Kellen Mond's confidence too. Like, there's no way, in my opinion, that you can bring Mike Zimmer back after that whole charade. Like, oh, I see him every day, I don't want to see him again. Or, you know, it's like, you don't say that. You maybe are thinking that in your mind, but you don't say that, you know.
And again, maybe Kellen Mond is just bad, I guess. I don't know. He could just be bad, but you've had how many weeks?
I don't know how he could be worse than Sean Mannion, though. Like,
exactly.
I really don't know. I don't know how that's even possible.
You had how many weeks to develop this guy and get him ready to eventually be the backup, possibly starter, but I was excited when you took him because it's something new, exciting. It's that new toy, but maybe he is just bad. Maybe I listened to Chris Sims's posts or draft analysis way too much when he had him ranked 37th out of 40 quarterbacks in the league. I don't know. Maybe he's just bad. Maybe he is.
Yeah. Note to self: take every advice that Chris Sims gives you with a grain of salt.
Hey, he hit on a couple of those guys. He was big on
True.
Josh Allen coming out. He was big on I'd have to go back and look who he had some hits, but like everyone else, he has some misses as well. But I was really hoping this was going to be a hit.
And we
We'll have
don't
to
know
wait.
for sure yet.
We don't know
think.
yet. We'll have to wait.
Boy, if you get an offensive mind in there that's going to help actually develop the team, I think that's interesting. But
I think
so let's go to
we get a
go ahead, Chris.
starting quarterback in too, like that can bring him along. I think Kirk's not the guy to like have like a sort of Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers type relationship. It's just so not to hit on Kirk. I feel like I'm being mean to him. He had a good game today. I love you, Kirk. Sorry.
Well, let me ask you guys this: what do you do? Are we all in on bringing Kirk back, or do you explore trying to unload his salary and find a trade partner?
I'm not all
Chris?
in on bringing him back. I would love to bring in a guy like, watching Drew Lock against the Chiefs. He can run the ball and he has some arm talent, and if we can get a first round pick and Drew Lock for Kirk Cousins, that's not like terrible to me. Like I don't think our quarterback has to be that elite kind of player like everyone thinks. I think Drew Lock can give us some success, but that's just one name. Jameis Winston, of course, free agent quarterback this year too, and of course we'd love to get into the Russell Wilson sweepstakes this year. But Kirk, if he's not terrible, if we bring him back, I'm not totally against that too, but definitely would love to see him just take a little bit of a pay cut, because I love to see that he wants to stay here for like his whole career, but it just doesn't make sense if he stays at that pay for our team to be successful. Like we just need some more salary cap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the biggest issue for me is the salary cap. I think the salary cap is just not favorable for Cousins, for somebody that doesn't raise his team like we talked about yesterday. He doesn't do enough to move the team over the edge to playoff contender, to Super Bowl contender. So if your quarterback isn't doing that for you, why is he your quarterback? You could put up all the stats in the world, which Cousins has put up a lot of good stats over his tenure in Minnesota. He's been consistent in that sense. But when the game is on the line and when it comes down to it, Kirk Cousins does not go down and win games very often. I mean, he did more so this year, but that was mainly because part of those teams were not very good, like the Panthers. I could say that about every game, was just an kind of a situation for the Vikings, except maybe the Seahawks game in week 2 or whenever that was, week 3 maybe. But I just don't think you can bring Kirk back. I think they will if they don't find a trade partner for him, and that's to say Rick Spielman isn't the GM, because I think Rick Spielman keeps Cousins if he's the GM, which, I don't think
I
so.
mean, I totally agree. I'm not all in on the Drew Lock hype train. I think Drew Lock's god awful. I'm sorry. I can't stand Drew Lock. I think he's bad. But I'm just team blow the whole thing up. Just blow up the roster. I think you're probably gonna have to get rid of Danielle Hunter. I'm all for getting rid of Kirk. I don't know what you want to do with a Harrison Smith type or Adam Thielen. I think Adam Thielen will obviously retire a Viking, but there's some pieces that are gone. Barr is going to be gone. I mean, I'm ready to blow it up and just completely, if we were going to do this, let's just get rid of all the main contracts and just restart. It's going to be terrible for a couple of years, but I just think that's the start you're going to have. And I'm terrified that Denver and Cleveland are the only 2 teams, or maybe Pittsburgh are the only 3 teams that pop up into my mind that would probably go all in on a Kirk Cousins. And do you trade him to Cleveland? Do you deal with Baker for a year and see how he fares? I don't know. I don't have the answer for the Kirk Cousins. It's not his fault completely of what happened, but I think it's just time for that ship to sail.
I don't think it's all his fault. I will say that too, but you can't just say because of all his great stats that he's not to blame. I mean, there's no sense in that because, I mean, even Justin Jefferson puts up these amazing stats, but it doesn't result in the win column. And it's not Justin Jefferson's fault. I'm not going to say that, but I'm just saying it's the quarterback where he's not getting him the ball in bigger situations. And even there was a few dump offs to Cook in the game where if he would have waited, would have found somebody. And granted, there was a few of those dump offs where he didn't have time, literally didn't have time. But yeah, so I guess my next question for you guys is, do you if you move on from Spielman, I think that's kind of where we're all sitting too, at least moving on from him in terms of being the GM. Who do you go and get? You mentioned a couple of names, Chandler. You mentioned Rob Brzezinski, which I think he's been really great as a cap specialist. So maybe you think about that. I think you'd have to have a pretty decent assistant GM in that case. But maybe you also think about going outside the organization, which I am definitely for that. It's just finding the right guy. Is there anybody that, comes to your guys' mind, I guess, in terms of the GM? We'll start with you, Chris.
I wish I had kept in the know more about that whole GM situation more than I'd have with the head coach. So I haven't familiarized myself much with the actual prospects. But if I had to throw out a guy, he's my favorite Vikings YouTuber, Purple for the Win. He could be. He knows. He just the Vikings guy. He knows what we should do. So shout out to him.
Louis Riddick?
Honestly, he could be a good GM. I could see him going in there and doing a lot of things that could help us. I don't know. You guys should check him out. Have you seen that guy at all?
I have, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you say Louis Riddick?
Maybe Phil Mackey should be the new GM, I don't know. He speaks some truth every now and then.
He does, but he's also filled with the hottest of hot takes there at Score North. I don't know. I honestly don't know too many names outside of the organization that there's a ton of people and there's a bunch of guys that we don't even know and who knows what they bring to the table. That assessment of who to bring in for GM is way over my head and out of my knowledge zone. Besides knowing the guys that we have in organization already, I have no clue where we would begin with that.
What do you think of Louis Riddick? You mentioned him after I mentioned him.
Yeah, no chance. Not a big Louis Riddick guy. I like him on TV. He seems like a great dude, but I don't think that would be the right move in this situation.
Speaking of YouTubers and people that kind of got their start, Jordan Reed, who was on climbing the pocket and kind of did some different things. He had his podcast going and now he's with ESPN. He's kind of moving up the ranks of people that know drafting really well. And I feel like that's a huge part of being a GM. Maybe you bring him in as your GM or at least assistant GM and maybe, see what he's got, if you're talking about guys that are kind of in that realm, or do you want somebody that's been in the football business longer, in terms of they've been in a front office? I don't know. it's hard to say. I don't know if there's an assistant GM at one of the top teams in the league that you're just like, let's go get him. Let's go get the assistant GM that is in Kansas City, or let's go get the assistant GM that's in Tampa Bay. I don't know. Maybe one of those guys. I don't, if there is, I'm guessing there's assistant GMs both of those places. I actually don't know either, but I think something's got to be done because I don't think Rick ever admits when he's wrong. And I don't think he ever trades players that because they're old. He just trades them when he needs another position. He never trades them because they're old. He never trades them because their contract's too big. So I don't, that's another reason why I don't think he trades Cousins, and I don't think he'll trade Harrison Smith. I don't think he'll trade Adam Thielen. I don't think he'll trade Anthony Barr. I hope he does.
Is
I hope
Barr,
he does
isn't he
trade
a
some of
free
those.
agent after this year? Doesn't he walk? I thought he had something on his Instagram before the game. He had something on his Instagram story one last time or something. So I think he's a free agent. I think he knows that he's going to be gone after this year.
Maybe. I thought, because when the Jets offered him that deal, how long ago was that? That was
Was
a
it-
couple.
Unless he could come back, but I want to say
Maybe
that
maybe it
cut
was
him.
one last time with Zimmer, maybe, or one
I
last
don't
time for the
know.
year. You know,
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways. A bunch of different ways
you
that
could
could be.
interpret it a different way, maybe, but So let's move on to Cousins. Is there like you had mentioned some different people that could come in for Cousins? Do you think Chandler that we should move on from Kirk Cousins, or do you think we should give him another chance with another GM, another head coach?
Man, that's such a tough question. I think he puts up good numbers. We know the numbers. We know what he's capable of. But there's always going to be that what if we put him in a situation that he's never been, like a better situation, a great offensive scheme. But every year he's been in Minnesota, right? He's had a different offensive coordinator. I don't know. I mean, I think he expects to be a Viking and retire a Viking. I like Kirk. Obviously, I don't know him personally, but I like what he brings to the table. Yes, he does piss me off more times than not. Just the way he performs in the pockets and is not very agile. I wish that would be something that would change, but that's not going to change. We know that. We know who he is. We know what he brings. He's going to put up great numbers, but those great numbers aren't always going to lead to wins. And a lot of the losses this year were not his fault. But if you're going to restart and you're going to change things up, I think you have to look at the ideas of trying to move off from him. We talk about the cap. The cap's the biggest cap myth, right? There is no cap. There's always ways around it. I'm indifferent. I wouldn't be surprised if we kept him. I wouldn't be surprised if we moved on from him. But I think you have to see like what San Francisco did. You can see how far he's only going to take you. If there's a player out there that you want and know will be an upgrade, go get him and go make the change. Like, be aggressive in that sense. That's what I want to see if we do move on from a Rick Spielman, is the next GM to be aggressive like that. Trade away draft picks and move up and make that big splash deal, for better, for worse. Well, that's what I want to see. But I'm indifferent. I think we could easily see him. If you can find a trade partner, we could end up seeing him just stick around, which will be fine either way, I think. I mean, we know who he is. We know what he brings to the table. I think we all, as fans, understand what we need from him in order to win with him.
Well, Justin Jefferson gave a very, by the book answer when he didn't get the record. And they asked him about it in the press conference later. And Chris Thomason has a quote: "I'm not really tripping. Try to get it another time." Said to his receivers, "It was tough not to get record, but it is what it is." And that's very by the book. I think he's actually very upset, honestly. And then he also says on if he wants Zimmer back, he says obviously that's not something I can control. And he also says, "I'll let the upstairs worry about that." Like Zimmer as both a coach and a person. And then on Kirk Cousins. Our relationship has been growing ever since I stepped in the building last year. Things aren't always perfect with us, but he's the reason I'm getting all these yards. Well, I tell you what, Justin, there's some other quarterbacks that could probably get you those yards too. I'm just saying. You know, so
Oh, buddy.
it's an interesting interview. I kind of want to watch kind of Jefferson's reactions when he's making these comments, but it's
No, you touched on it earlier, like yesterday. Kirk has shown some sort of troubles with his receivers, and I don't know if you guys saw Kyle Rudolph say something that could have been interpreted as like against Kirk and saying that Danny Dimes is the best quarterback he's ever played with. Which I mean, I'm not all there that Kyle and Kirk had this sort of bad vibe, but Kyle only had 200 something yards in his last season as a Viking, so that's not something Kirk can always control, but with Diggs leaving us, it's like, I don't know, Kirk has this way that kind of scares you. It's like I just want our guys to stay in the building. I want to keep Justin happy.
Yeah, we don't want another Stephon Diggs situation, I don't think. Especially not with Justin Jefferson. I mean, that's my nightmare coming true right there, is if we have to trade Justin Jefferson because of a head coach or a offensive coordinator or a quarterback, whoever it is, not getting him the ball, not throwing it to him when he's open, like today, even though KJ Osborne caught a diving ball, he's too talented to have that happen. Like, we can't have that happen. And I mean, that's really what ended up happening at the end of Randy Moss's tenure too, in some regards. He didn't get along too well with management or the coaching or whatever it was. I can't quite remember how it unfolded. I was also a little younger at that time, but yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Chandler? Do you feel like Jefferson is sour a little bit about how things went this season? Do you think he's going to ask to be let out if things don't go the Vikings' way next year?
I don't foresee this being a Stephon Diggs. I mean, obviously, if it continues on this road, but since there's going to be massive change coming to this organization, I think it's going to benefit him. I don't know. I try and not look into him. Maybe it does bother him what's going on in Cincinnati, seeing his former teammates having so much fun and winning the division. It's just weird, hearing Kirk talk. It's like, how he is goofy, he's weird, but how could this guy rub someone off the wrong way that much? I mean, obviously he does. We know Kirk. We know his game by now. He does miss a lot of opportunities down the field. We see that. Obviously Jefferson will be here for the foreseeable future because I think we'll give him a lot of money when his contract's coming up. He'll stay there. After the second contract, if it continues to get bad, maybe he will leave. I don't know. I just think there's a lot of problems that need to be on the path of getting fixed with this offseason. And that starts with, I think, getting a head coach that, not saying Zimmer doesn't have great relationships with his players, because obviously I'm not in that building and I don't know, but seeing more of that trust between players and a coach, I think that will benefit this team and organization going forward. And if Kirk Cousins is here, he's here. If not, he's not.
So let me ask you both this question. Do you feel like the new GM, whoever that is, should really look to get the opinions of the players before, or at least of the players that are going to stay before they hire a new head coach? Because to me, if you hire a head coach that Justin Jefferson or, anybody else like Danielle Hunter, assuming you keep him, if you get a head coach that they don't like or they don't have a good relationship with, and obviously that takes time to build a relationship, but how much stock do you put into the players helping out with that, or at least, getting their opinion on it before you go ahead and just, oh, we're going to hire Doug Peterson. Don't even tell them a thing about it, like what are your thoughts on that? How much should players be informed of the decision or asked about the options before the decision is actually made? We'll start with Chris this time.
It's a really good question, and it's something that I think is important to think about when it comes to like player morale and just like, making sure the locker room has a good vibe. And that's like bringing in someone that I think the players will want to play for, and so I think these guys are smart, and they sort of, I'm sure they have been looking at the potential head coaches out there, and have people that they think would be a good fit. And it would be really awesome if whoever is in charge of making that head coach decision, if they reached out to those players and said, hey, like, what do you guys think? Because ultimately you guys are going to be the ones working for this guy, not me. I'm just going to be the GM overseeing it. So you guys are going to be out there practicing every single day with this guy. So it's got to be like really important to get their feedback, especially guys like Jefferson and Dalvin and Daniil Hunter and guys that are leaders on this team, and want to see this team succeed. So with that being said, I'm not sure like how that goes. Like if that's even like a norm to hear players give their opinions on that kind of thing, or if they're just expected to give it their all for whoever comes in, whoever the new GM brings in. So if in a perfect world, I'd love to hear their opinions, but I don't know.
Well, I think we saw that in Houston when, Deshaun Watson was blindsided and he thought he should be involved in that. I think Aaron Rodgers had the same thing in Green Bay. He felt like he should have been involved in some of those draft pick meetings. And just, I feel like there's such an ego in, football in general. It's just a big ego-driven league and sport that GMs believe it's their job to do this. They don't need opinions on the players. They're going to go out and get the right. Your job is just not necessarily just shut up and play, but, just like you said, Chris, just play hard for whoever it is, depending. I mean, if you like them or not. So I personally, if I was a GM, I probably would like a few of my core leaders in the meetings and get their opinion, because who do you want to play for? Who are you going to play the hardest for? Granted, you should be playing hard for any coach. I don't think it's a norm in there, but I feel like it should be more of a norm in all of sports of whoever's getting hired, there should be some sort of dialogue between the players and the front office.
Yeah, I think that's some good thoughts there. I think there, like you said, needs to be those core players should have a say. I think that's pretty obvious, at least in my opinion. So that's hopefully what we'll see. We'll hopefully see some of these guys get the opportunity to voice their opinions before they, go out and hire Bill O'Brien and ruin all of our lives. But
hey, I swear, if that happens, I'm going to be drinking a lot more of these. That's for sure. I'm sorry, my phone was dying, so I have to I'm playing musical chairs here, trying to charge my phone since my Wi-Fi is so great here as well. But for the Bill O'Brien comment, there you go, Shuby. There's a toast to that, because that would be nightmare. I would quit. I think I would just give up.
The guy literally had the best offense in college football this year. Oh my gosh, if he messes that up, that would be the real problem. Like, if you mess that up, it would take, why do you even consider him? Like, Shad Khan, what are you doing there? In Jacksonville, they're considering him as the next head coach of the Jaguars. You just
It-
messed up with Doug Marrone. I mean, Doug Marrone, had a couple of good years. Urban Meyer, we know that atrocity. Bill O'Brien would just be the next atrocity. Like, don't even consider. I don't even think any NFL team should consider bringing him in, or
Didn't
even for an interview.
did they interview Jim Caldwell as well?
They might have. I don't know.
I thought I saw they interviewed him. That would probably be a perfect coach for a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just even keel. It's just going to be like the ship's going to be turned around. You might not ever be that good to be like a threat. There's always a possibility, but you're not going to have drama, and you're going to have a real professional in there. I
was
don't do Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, I was always of the mindset when the Lions let Jim Caldwell go, I thought that was a mistake because he was the best head coach in Lions history, record-wise. And, they had made the playoffs with him. And, I think players liked him, respected him. And, maybe that's even a name you think about. Jim Caldwell, bringing him in, at least, considering as an offensive assistant, maybe. I don't know.
Now that the Steelers are they're in the playoffs now. With that win,
Have
did
been
they make?
nice to? Yeah, I think they did.
I was saying maybe God, only if they would part their ways with Mike Tomlin.
Bring him
I would
back.
love
Run it
Mike
back.
Tomlin. Run it back until 2006. Either
Yes.
way, we'll run it back with Eric Bieniemy.
Maybe, you imagine him and Andre Patterson with that defense. That would be fun. That would be fun. And then, yeah, co-head coaches are never a thing in the NFL, and they're rarely a thing in general. But maybe you think about that with Eric Bieniemy a little bit, with Mike Tomlin or whoever. I don't know. Co-head coaches maybe is not the best idea, but I don't know. It could be.
Let me ask you guys again. Like, why is it that you don't think Eric Bieniemy's got a job yet? Is it the fact that not a lot of these Andy Reid coaching tree candidates or offensive coordinators haven't really panned out too much? I mean, I just think or he doesn't call the plays. Like, I don't think that should factor in him getting a job. I don't see how he hasn't. Is he just that bad of an interview? I mean, that's what they said about Zimmer.
That's what I think is the deal. Is he's such a bad interview, is what I've heard. But I don't care if he's a bad interview if he doesn't talk to the media quite the way, or quite, if he's not the normal, give you the P's and Q's types of answers. I don't know. To me, it's if he has good relationships with players and if he can make the play calls that need to be made in the right situations, who cares? Put him out there. Hire him. Players love him. Players respect him. Get him in there. But I don't know. Maybe it does have to do with the Andy Reid thing, because, we know how Matt Nagy's turned out. But, I think of the candidates that Reid, of the coaching tree that Reid is left, I think Bieniemy might end up being the best one of the bunch, but we'll see. Hopefully he gets an opportunity. Man, that guy deserves it so bad. And, Byron Leftwich too, I think he deserves one too. At least an interview, at least call him up. Say, hey, Byron, come over here to Minnesota. Let's hear what you would like to do with the Vikings offense or the Vikings organization as a head coach. Like, what would you do for us? Like, how would you put us over the top? What kind of system would you run? Would you run on 2nd and long again, like, Zimmer loves to do? Would you run on 3rd down, run another draw play, run another screen pass? Oh, boy.
I think the most important question the Vikings are going to ask, do you have any sons that are coaches that, like, are looking for a job? That we love that. If you have that goes so far with us. Like, you're hired right now. So
yeah, does Clint Kubiak have a brother?
It's a family affair, Chris. Come on, it's a family organization. We just bring them all in, bring them in.
Yeah, I love it. A big happy family. Only when we're winning, though.
Yeah. Oh man, it is. It is something.
what I was going to say, do we know what draft pick we have now? Has that been established?
I think we've got to wait for all today's games to be done because there might be a team that's ahead or near us in the draft order. So I'm guessing tonight sometime we'll know, because who's playing again tonight? It's the Chargers and the Raiders.
Raiders, yep.
So maybe that one won't have any bearing on our standing, because I think they're both better records. But maybe this afternoon, after this afternoon, we might know. That's what I'm thinking. But I'm guessing we're going to be in the teens again. It's definitely not in the top 10. We know that. We would have. Oh man. You know, an interesting name though, head coach wise. If the Niners would have not been good this year, if they would have been, if the Vikings would have beat them that game and they would have just kind of went down a hill, and then they fire Shanahan, I wouldn't have minded Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. I wouldn't have minded it. Maybe you get sour taste in your mouth yet from, the whole Falcons meltdown in the Super Bowl, but I don't know if I don't know. I think he wouldn't be a bad hire as an offensive guy, but I don't know what you guys think of him.
Oh, I would have been all for that as well. Is there going to come to a point with some like Viking fans that our next head coach is going to be too aggressive? We're just used to, not being aggressive. Like, are we going to see fans like, what are you doing? Why are we doing this? See, that would have been Kyle Shanahan. I feel like would have been like, wow, this is uber aggressive. Why are we doing this? But
yeah,
it's refreshing to see as a fan sometimes when it works, obviously.
We've gone for it on fourth down for the third time today. What's going on?
Dude, if we brought in a guy like Kyle Shanahan, given the offense that we see from the 49ers every week, getting Deebo Samuel the ball in these creative ways, all the talent they have in their backfield that they just creatively, they push the ball down the field. They get their guys open in the open field, like on every play. And it's impressive. It's like modern. It's like we got guys like Osborne, Jefferson, Thielen, get them in that kind of offense. And I think we could be like something really special, but we're just stuck in this sort of like, all right, hike the ball, HB zone, HB dive, offense,
Yeah, let's run it right behind Ali Udo, who's our best offensive lineman. That's a great idea. Gosh, why would you do that? Like, run behind Brian O'Neill, maybe, like go out a little further. Don't go straight in there. Run out a little further, go to the left side where you got Ezra Cleveland, where you got Christian Darrisaw, your stud rookie left tackle for the most part. He's been a stud. But no, let's just run it up the middle with Garrett Bradbury. He's such a great center. Our right guard, Oli Udo, he's so good. Let's run it right up there. No. Yeah, it's.
I mean, we have Dalvin Cook. Wow, he's the best. He can get by him. Well, no, like there's three guys like unblocked.
Yeah, not when there's three guys in front of. Yeah,
I'm going to miss the CJ Ham screens, and we got to establish CJ Ham every game. I'm really going to miss that. CJ Ham, former running back in college. We all know his story as well. God bless his soul, but I don't need to see any more screens or jump offs to you ever again.
I'm okay with it occasionally, but it got to be too much. If it's a situation where he's open and nobody else is, which I don't think that is usually the case, we just like throwing him the ball. Let's throw it to our best playmaker. Best playmaker, 5 yards and less, maybe. Maybe that's what it is. And, we know that Kirk loves that. So
the best playmaker on our team from South Dakota, probably.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, I do love CJ Ham. I do. But yeah, the way the Vikings tried to use him like he is literally, Rob Gronkowski, or even Kyle Juszczyk, I guess maybe would be a better example. It's not quite the same. But I will say, one thing I was going to mention to you, Chandler, we briefly talked about Cordero Patterson yesterday when you weren't with us. You imagine if you brought in Kyle Shanahan and you had Cordero Patterson his rookie year. Imagine the ways that he would have gotten him involved in the offense and the ways that the Vikings never did. Or they did, but they didn't do it as much as they should have. You know,
Well,
like that was my whole thing with Patterson. Like, yeah, he's a great talent, great athleticism, and all this stuff. Spielman went out and got him, and we didn't use him after that rookie
that's
year.
what I. Yeah. How did it take this long for a guy to figure out how to use Cordero Patterson?
Yeah,
Like, how long? How did it take that long for someone to figure it out? Like, I always said he's like a bigger Percy Harvin. Find different ways, put him in the backfield, screens left and right. You don't need him just to be a wide receiver. He is a weapon. Like, it blows my mind. Good for Cordero Patterson. Hopefully he gets into the Pro Bowl. I don't think he was originally voted in, but he's well deserved to go in as not just a returner, but as a wide receiver, running back, whatever you want to put him at. But I will raise a toast to Cordero Patterson. That guy's having a great year. Love it.
yeah. Raise a toast to Cordero Patterson, man. That's congratulations. You know what? It could be with a worse team, so good for him. But
He could be a lead back, but he's just like getting like every week. Mike Davis is like cutting into his workload. If he gets that lead back workload, like Derrick Henry numbers are possible. Like, kid is unreal. I don't know.
yeah, and he's tall enough where like you said, he's kind of got that Derrick Henry height. He maybe doesn't have the strength or maybe quite the build of Derrick Henry, but he's got the height and he's got the ability to somewhat run over people, I feel like. But it's another one the Vikings let get away. Laquan Treadwell had a touchdown today. There you go. There's another.
Yeah, how about Megaquan just becoming the
he's like their lead
wideout?
receiver now. Yeah.
What is going on? All these former great Viking receivers. So we'll never forget his great one-handed catch against the Packers. A Packer killer, Laquan Treadwell. Good for him, though. Again, another guy, getting a shot, doing the best he can. I mean, that's all we ask for.
That's right. Okay, so we've gone through about everything I think that we wanted to go through today. What is there anything that we haven't discussed that we should hit before we go here today? Anything that you guys feel like we've left out?
I know we're a ways out of the draft, but right now, what position are you guys looking at for them to take? I'm best player available at this point with this roster. You got to go best player available.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. We've got so many positions that we could use, like defensive line. Like, I don't even know what we're going to be looking like next year. There's a question mark with Everson. Wish him the best, but guys like Dalvin, will we move on from him? Will we keep him on our line? And then there's our secondary, which has been one of the worst in the league this year. Bashaud Breeland, we lost him, and Cameron Dantzler had to step up, and that has given Chris Boyd a lot of playing time. So I think if there's a position like with the most immediate need, it's cornerback. And there's one in particular that everyone's talking about getting. I forget his name though.
Sauce
guy
Gardner?
from Cincinnati. Yeah, Sauce.
Yeah, Sauce. Yeah. I think that would be great, man. I don't think the QB draft is like anything special this year, and wide receiver room we're completely set. But I guess offensive line and secondary are my two big things, because I think we can like kind of survive with what we got at the defensive line for the time being, but it'll be rough still.
I think if you have an opportunity to draft a really good first-round defensive lineman, like a defensive end on the opposite side of Hunter, you do it. But I also think, Sauce Gardner, if he's there, get him. The Vikings need another cornerback so bad, which is funny because didn't we just draft one? A couple of them? It's like Zimmer, he gets these corners, and obviously we know what happened with Jeff Gladney and all that, and who knows if he would have panned out anyway. But it just seems like all these corners that he drafts, he can't develop them. That's just what it seems like to me. I mean, Trey Waynes never really developed like the Vikings had hoped with his speed. We thought, oh, he's going to be good with that speed, just has to work on his ability to not fall behind a wide receiver. But it just didn't ever work out with him. Xavier Rhodes was only the prime example of what Zimmer can do, I guess. And maybe that's just Rhodes. Who knows? But, I'd say Sauce Gardner's one of my top guys. Maybe Aiden Hutchinson is another guy you think about at that defensive end position. And then quarterback, I agree with Chris. I don't think there's a quarterback. Maybe Mr. Bryce Young. Is he a sophomore? Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be back in Bama next year.
Yeah, I think he's just a sophomore. So maybe get that bridge quarterback.
We already have him, Sean Mannion.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, man, I forgot about that. Oh, so there you go. You don't even have to worry about quarterback next year. Just roll out there with Sean Mannion. Kellen Mond probably won't ever see the light of day again. If
bring back Kyle
Zimmer
Sloter
has anything to say with it. Yeah, Kyle Sloter.
I'd
be okay with that one.
I would love Aiden Hutchinson, Carson, but I think he will be, unfortunately, a top 5 pick, and we won't even get to sniff him. That would be great. I would love him. If there's a linebacker there, I'm all for taking a linebacker because we'll probably lose Barr. We're going to need someone next to Kendricks. If we're picking late teens, where I think we're going to be, Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson sounds pretty good, to be honest. Thielen's only getting older. It's tempting as a fan. Chris Olave would be fun.
But we're never going to have depth problems again at wide receiver, though. That's my whole thing with Spielman. Even like this year, like they didn't even think that the depth at the receiver position was an issue. And thankfully KJ Osborne stepped up and showed us that we have a wide receiver 3. But coming into this year, we were like, who's our wide receiver 3? Nobody's.
I was going to say, like, Chad Beebe was our guy, wasn't he?
Yeah. Chad Beebe.
Remember what happened to him? Did he tear his knee up in camp?
Yeah, something happened where he was on the IR, I think. So, Chad Beebe, if Chad Beebe's the 5th wide receiver, I'm okay with that. Anything higher, maybe not. But
it's going to be
keep him as a gunner, maybe on special teams with Dan Chisena, like those two, maybe every punt. But yeah, our wide receiver room, it's stocked. It's looking good. That's the one position where I feel good.
But again, I would not be opposed to drafting another one because, like you said with Thielen, he's getting old. And then if you draft one, trade Thielen. Trade him, get something else in return, or maybe trade Thielen before the draft and then draft him. I don't know. Get something in return. Like, I think so many times Rick Spielman, mainly Rick Spielman, he just is afraid to make any moves that would change. Oh no, what would the fans say if Thielen goes? What would the fans say if Harrison Smith doesn't retire as a Viking? Well, you could always sign a 1-year contract or a 1-day contract at the end. But like Favre did. I mean, Favre went to Green Bay went from Green Bay to Minnesota. It's like, it's possible that these other guys can go somewhere, like, I don't understand the whole shtick. Oh, well, if he's a lifetime player here, then our fans will be happy about it. Well, maybe that's true, but is it actually going to help our long-term success? Thielen, maybe he will, but also, if we trade Thielen for a, 2nd or 3rd or maybe even higher draft pick, could go get a guy like Chris Olave. Could go get a guy like maybe Sauce Gardner. Maybe Thielen allows you to trade up into the top 10. I don't know. Just depends on the team.
Someone better get that. Go ahead, Chris.
No, you go ahead. I would go ahead.
I was just gonna make a funny comment. Why can't is it the Jimmy Johnson trade point system? Yeah, someone better get working on that and see what kind of
Yeah.
trades we can dial up.
Yeah, see what we can get for Adam Thielen. Get a whole draft, somebody's whole draft.
Yeah, Thielen, he's been good for touchdowns, but I mean, he can make like those catches that are like, oh my goodness, how did he catch that? But yeah, it's so exciting thinking about what we could do. You know, he's getting up there in age, and there's so many options out there for us at wide receiver that yet to be explored. But Thielen's a guy that I've loved though, and to see like in the purple, like to retire. You know, he's just that kind of guy. But I guess you gotta put the team first, and like what do we need, and how could a draft pick from Adam Thielen help us? But
another bright side too is we get Irv Smith back next year.
Yes,
that'll do wonders.
Do you bring Tyler Conklin back?
Is he officially a free agent after this year?
Yep.
I think he'll probably end up walking. That dude made himself some money this year, so I don't know if you can bring him back because we got Davidson on the practice squad ready to step on up and be the next guy. We got to love our 3rd and 4th round tight ends we take every year.
Yeah.
And Spielman's guy Christopher Herndon, 1 touchdown on the year.
Oh my
man!
God.
I even just forgot about him.
For those panic moves alone, Rick Spielman should be fired. Like, you trade a 4th round pick for a guy that's maybe worth a 6th, if that. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, you could have they signed Luke Stocker afterwards. Like, why didn't you just sign Luke Stocker anyway? Chris Herndon had 1 catch or, a couple of catches on the whole year. It's like, wow, that really did wonders for us. You could have rather just thrown the ball to CJ Ham. Really?
Yeah.
Your boy.
The Hamburglar. That's Mark Sanchez's boy. That guy.
Oh, that's true.
Loves
That's right.
the Hamburglar.
Oh man.
You would have thought he was Mike Allstott the way Mark Sanchez loves CJ Ham.
Yeah. That's right.
I remember watching that. I'm just like, what is he saying? Like, this is unbelievable. But
I love
gentlemen.
Mark Sanchez, man.
Let's go to final thoughts before we wrap up. We'll start with Chandler this time. Chandler, any final thoughts from the season? Final thoughts heading into the off season? Any wish list items other than head coach and GM coming up for you, and maybe quarterback trade?
Obviously very disappointing season, not making the playoffs for the 2nd year in a row. It's a lot less stressful end of the year for all of us, which is sometimes nice. But, I try and take the advice of one of my dad's best friends, who is a big Packer fan, but it's easier for him to say this. There's so much more to life than, sports and a football team. But as long as they give you a little bit of entertainment throughout the year, that should be all that matters. And my God, were they entertaining this year? All the close games. I mean, every game was very entertaining up till the end. They have the pieces. We knew depth was going to be an issue. I feel like there isn't a clear path of what they need to do to fix everything. It's going to be, again, the biggest offseason in probably franchise history. And I'm very excited to see what they do. Let's just hope they don't screw it up. But obviously, again, disappointing season. But it is what it is. I'm ready by July of the summer. I'll be getting ready to go and all pumped up again, thinking, this might be our year again. But until then, that are my thoughts on the season. Thank you, Mike Zimmer, for all the memories, but wish you well on your future endeavors.
Chris?
Yeah, Chandler, like you said, here we are in the biggest offseason of the franchise history. And it's kind of nice to get all the games behind us. And I'm sure in the players' interviews, they've said, I'm not really thinking about the future right now. I'm just focused on the Bears. Well, now these guys can focus on what's next, and we can finally figure out what's going on, and we can not worry about the game anymore. Like you said, like it's been a tough season, man, and we can talk about it, and it's certainly entertaining to talk about, and I love talking about it with you guys. But I guess we'll never know what's going to happen until Monday or whatever, or whenever we find out, who's gonna lead our guys, and who are we gonna bring in to decide on draft picks, with the draft coming up and stuff. So it's such a pivotal time for our Vikings team, and it's like Chandler said, it's like next August we'll be out there supporting our guys still, but certainly has been a season of ups and downs. It's like we've seen Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson show their talent, but it hasn't really gone past that next level, and there's been some lows in the offense too. And we've seen some shiny moments with our defense, like guys like Patrick Peterson stepped up, and Blake Lynch today, I wanted to say his name, like he got a pick. The future's bright with him. I think we have a lot of young guys on that side of the ball that I'm excited to see, like who we can bring in to bring them up to the next level, and get us to that playoff goal that I'm sure we have going into next year.
Hopefully.
But yeah, Skol Vikes.
Appreciate that, gentlemen. It's been a roller coaster. Is there any other Vikings season that there hasn't been a roller coaster? Like, I'm just thinking, I mean, even 2009 there was a roller coaster at the end. So yeah, I mean, it's just what we've come to expect at this point, a roller coaster. And that is actually the definition of this season. I think for me, after the coach and the GM have been decided, if you're keeping Rick, whatever, I don't think I'm pretty 99.999% sure that Zimmer's gone. I'm expecting the announcement tomorrow or late tonight. That's when I'm expecting it. But yeah, I think there was flashes of good things, like you saw today with the wide receiver core. It looks bright, but that doesn't mean you can't get better. Get more depth, because one or two of those guys go down. What are you gonna do? So that's another thing. Just be cognizant of depth. Like, get more depth on this team. Corners, get more corners. Get 10 of them. I don't know. Somebody's got to pan out eventually, but I think that's the big thing. And for me, I think trading Kirk is the right situation. You got to at least at minimum get one first-round pick, I think, for him. If you don't get a first-round pick for him and the Eagles got a first-round pick out of Sam Bradford, then that tells me Rick Spielman needs to go, among other mistakes that Rick has made. I think trading-wise, Rick is probably one of my least favorite GMs. But in terms of drafting, he's probably up there. He's probably up there in maybe the top 10, top 15. But there's a lot of draft picks that haven't been used properly as well. So, once again, you could follow Chris Dupick on Twitter at dude dupe. And you can follow Chandler on Twitter at Chandler Holland, but there's a caveat to that. It's 2 I's, not 2 L's. The letter I, 2 capital I's, because Holland with 2 L's was taken. So
yeah, I'm gonna find out who that is. I'm coming for him. Coming.
So make sure you do that if you're searching for Chandler and trying to follow him. He's got another fan account. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not.
You can. I don't care. I don't hide, but I mainly use that.
Loserville?
My Loserville. Yeah. Hollywood __74 is my main Twitter account I use. I mainly use that. I tweet a little bit, but I mainly use it just for news. That's all I use Twitter for, is news.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like reading the paper. My fiance doesn't care for it, but.
And
isn't it crazy? We heard that Mike Zimmer news like right after our episode yesterday.
Yeah.
Wasn't that how it kind of played out? Is like we got that CBS story like yesterday, and it was like right after we got off.
Yeah. Oh boy,
It was
Zimmer
crazy.
made I'm guessing. So all I see on here on Bleacher Report is Zimmer turns question about his future right back to reporter post game. First of all, I'm going to guess that it was Chris Thomason who asked the question. Number two, I'm going to say that Zimmer, oh, well, what about your future? Do you know if you're going to get fired tomorrow? Something like that. I'm going to watch the video after we're done here, but gosh. Oh,
Oh, you got to go out strong. Classic Zim.
Can we get
Classic
them
Zim.
to fight? Like, just
let's have a
fight.
boxing
Just-
match
just
between
a
Thomason
boxing
and
match
Zimmer.
It's due. It has to happen.
Yeah.
Tag team between Bashad Breeland and Zimmer against Chris Thomason.
I was
Hope
going
he
to
doesn't wear
say,
his shoes.
maybe the Vikings will do Zimmer one last solid and not let Chris Thomason into the press conference today, but nope, they did. They let him in. So
Who else is going to ask him those hard hitting questions, man?
yeah, exactly. Well, everybody, we are going to go ahead and end. We could probably keep talking for hours upon hours, but we might be having another episode coming up this week, depending on the news when it comes out and all that stuff. Then we'll have for sure set in stone something to talk about in terms of a head coach. Kind of all of this is pretty much reckless speculation, as they say on Score North, but it's fun. It's fun to talk with you guys, and if any Vikings fans out there found enjoyment in this, we appreciate it, and stay tuned for more videos like this. I'm sure the off season won't be as much of us talking unless there's big news to talk about, or when we get closer to the draft and things like that, but it should be a lot of fun to keep talking with you guys, and maybe we'll get a couple of guests here every now and then on the show, hear new people's thoughts on the Vikings, what they should do. So, gentlemen, it's been fun. We appreciate you both. I appreciate you both joining me, and Skol Vikes.
Skol. Got to do the Skol chant.
Yeah. Skol.
Skol.
It was to a great off season.
It's a little different not doing the Skol chant in US Bank Stadium, but we'll make it work. We'll try it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we did our best.
Well, thanks for joining us here on the Skol Purple podcast, and we will see you next time. Stay tuned to our Twitters at Carson Shuby, as well on Twitter for updates, Facebook page, The Shuby Show, for updates on when the next episode is. And until next time, as we